Ballyclare District Historical Memorial Association. The Bloody Friday Massacre. Bloody Friday, the name given to one of the most horrifically devastating days of violence carried out by the IRA on the 21st of July 1972. The IRA had planted and exploded 22 bombs in the space of 65 minutes, killing 9 people and leaving over 130 seriously injured, 77 of them women and children, and many of whom were maimed. But horrifyingly, no one will ever forget seeing firemen scrape up the human remains and put the innocent victims into black plastic bags. This was seen as one of the worst atrocities carried out since the Troubles began, and its intention was to bring ordinary life in Belfast to an end. The IRA claimed to have given enough warnings to the media, the Samaritans and the Public Protection Agency, and, as always, blamed the security forces for ignoring these calls. Sean McStephen, the IRA Chief of Staff, stated, "It required only one man with a loud hailer to clear each target area in no time," and alleged that the warnings for the 2 bombs that claimed lives were deliberately ignored by the British for strategic policy reasons. In reality, all emergency staff and security forces were overstretched not only by the actual number of bombs, but by the deliberate hoax calls that were made to ensure further chaos. This massacre was carried out by IRA's Belfast unit under leader Brendan Hughes, using mainly car bombs with some other crude devices. Brendan Hughes gave an interview organised by Boston College and stated, "I was the operational commander of the Bloody Friday operation. I remember when the bombs started to go off, I was in Leeson Street and I thought, there's too much here. I sort of knew there was going to be casualties, either because the Brits could not handle so many bombs, or they would allow some to go off because it suited them to have casualties. I feel a bit guilty about it because, as I say, there was no intention to kill anyone that day. I have a fair deal of regret that Bloody Friday took place. A great deal of regret. If I could do it over again, I wouldn't do it." RUC officer Jack Dale remembered a large group of people in the Republican Markets area of Belfast, jeering and shouting and yelling as if each explosion was a good thing. Bloody Friday was the result of a breakdown in talks that had been secretly held between the British government and members of the IRA. These peace talks had been made possible when the SDLP leaders John Hume and Paddy Devlin met with the terrorists in Londonderry on the 14th of June 1972, and taking down their demands for this proposed meeting, they then presented them to the then Secretary of State of Northern Ireland, William Whitelaw, the very next day. The demands stated the meeting could not be held at Stormont. There should be no restrictions to who the IRA chose to represent them. There must be an independent witness in attendance, and political status to Republican prisoners. Whitelaw accepted these conditions, and a bilateral truce was announced on the 26th of June 1972. The secret meeting was held at the home of Minister of State for the North, Mr Paul Channon, on Friday the 7th of July 1972. Gerry Adams had been released from prison under Edward Heath's Conservative government for this purpose, and he and other IRA members held direct talks with William Whitelaw and other Northern Ireland office ministers. The IRA broke their ceasefire on the 9th of July after the talks failed, and because of a dispute over allocation of houses in the Suffolk area and a gun battle that had taken place between the IRA and the British Army in Horn Drive. Bloody Friday was the IRA's response to this breakdown in talks, and IRA's Chief of Staff Sean McStephen stated, It was a message to the British government that the IRA could and would make a commercial desert of the city unless its demands were met. Under Operation Motorman, the biggest military operation in Northern Ireland at that time, seen Whitelaw under pressure, sent in 20,000 soldiers who entered and retook the barricaded Republican no-go areas of Belfast and Londonderry. This massacre had a profound effect on the nation, no religion excluded, and yet the IRA didn't apologise for 30 years and then waited until the 30th anniversary Memorial Day to do so, and only to the civilians, stating, "While it was not our intention to injure or kill non-combatants, the reality is that on this and on a number of other occasions, that was the consequence of our actions. It is therefore appropriate, on the anniversary of this tragic event, that we address all of the deaths and injuries of non-combatants caused by us. We offer our sincere apologies and condolences to their families." In an interview 25 years later with a journalist, an RUC officer remembered the scene he came upon at Oxford Street Station in the wake of the bombing. He said, "The first thing that caught my eye was a torso of a human being lying in the middle of the street. It was recognisable as a torso because the clothes had been blown off and you could see parts of the human anatomy. One of the victims was a soldier I knew personally. He'd had his arms and legs blown off and some of his body had been blown through the railings. One of the most horrendous memories for me was seeing a head stuck to a wall. A couple of days later, we found vertebrae and a rib cage on the roof of a nearby building. The only reason we found it was because the seagulls were diving onto it. I've tried to put it at the back of my mind for 25 years. Let us not put the victims to the back of our minds as we remember them. Stephen Cooper, aged 19, member of the British Army, killed in the explosion at Oxford Street bus station. William Crothers, aged 15, Protestant civilian, killed in the explosion at Oxford Street bus station. John Gibson, 45, Protestant civilian, killed in the explosion at Oxford Street bus station. William Irvin, 18, Protestant civilian, killed in the explosion at Oxford Street bus station. Thomas Killips, aged 39, Protestant civilian, killed in the explosion at Oxford Street bus station. Bridget Murray, aged 65, Catholic civilian, killed in the explosion on the Cave Hill Road. Margaret O'Hare, aged 34, Catholic civilian, killed in the explosion on the Cave Hill Road. Stephen Parker, aged 14, Protestant civilian, killed in the explosion on the Cave Hill Road. Philip Price, aged 27, member of the British Army, killed in the explosion at Oxford Street bus station, Belfast.